Hello, everybody. I'm Douglas Truth, and I got a fish story for you. It's not about a fish I caught. It's about a fish that was caught, but I didn't catch the fish, but that's really not here nor there. But here's the story. So there's this guy, and first of all, the first thing I want to say with regard to this story is that this guy, he's not the same as all the other guys in those jokes and stories, right? Like a guy who walks into a bar with a rabbi and a priest, or the guy who walks into a bar with a parrot on his head, or the guy that's stuck on a desert island with nothing but a can opener. There's hundreds of those guys, and they're actually, they get called up. It's like extras in Hollywood. They get called up for these short jobs. Guy in a joke. Guy in a story, right? But this guy, the guy I'm going to talk about right now, total amateur, just walked into this story. No experience. Just an ordinary guy. Happened to be actually a professor, adjunct of literature at a community college just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. Ordinary guy. He couldn't be more ordinary. He's got a sleeveless sweater on, right? Glasses, wire-rimmed, square though. Sensible pants and shoes and so forth. And it's a Saturday afternoon. Single guy. He's in the Piggly Wiggly market just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, trying to figure out what he's going to have for dinner that night, that Saturday night. Anything seafood for whatever reason, right? Who knows why these decisions are made? Not really important, except insofar as it led to the story that's about to follow. So our guy, our totally ordinary guy, goes up to this big freezer. You know those chests they've got? And you look down and they're filled with frozen stuff. And this is the seafood chest. And it's just got a pile of stuff. Frozen king crab and frozen this and frozen that. And the guy's looking down there, just trying to not really gather his thoughts. That's not quite what was going on. More like waiting for inspiration. The way this guy worked, it was very slow. Kind of almost by osmosis, he hoped that a decision might get made without his having to do so. So looking down in the case, it takes his time. Some people just walk into the Piggly Wiggly. They throw something frozen into the shopping cart and they hit the exit. They go home, toss it in the microwave, and they're done, right? Not this guy. So he's looking down in the chest, right? And then something moves in the chest. Some rustling, some shuffling around, some movement. Like, what is that? What could that be? It's a chest of frozen seafood. And he bends down a little bit closer to look. What might be in there? I know, I'm thinking the same thing, right? Alien, don't get too close. So he's bent down looking at it. And out of this rustling pile of frozen seafood pops. I hesitate to even say it but it happened, right? A halibut. I was going to say a frozen halibut, but not. He's previously frozen, I guess what you call him. Previously frozen halibut pops up out of this pile of other seafood. He's still in the baby blue styrofoam tray with the tight plastic wrapping. And it just so happens the way that the halibut pops out of the case, they got two heads on the same side of their, two eyes on the same side of their head. And it just so happens that these two eyes are looking directly at the guy, the adjunct professor, looking down. And it's a meeting that I would say unique, even in the history, long, billion-year history of whatever, a unique meeting. And they're just looking at each other like neither knows what to do, what to say, what's going on. It's just too much. And then finally, and like I said, our guy's not like a decision maker. Finally, the halibut, the fish, decides to break the ice, so to speak, I guess. And he says, "Hey, buddy, where am I? What is this place?" Now, as an aside, I just want to tell you that most people, upon hearing the halibut speak to them thusly, would simply turn around. They wouldn't grab the shopping cart. They wouldn't go to the line. They would just walk calmly, don't run. Walk calmly to the exit. Get in the car and maybe go buy a hamburger or maybe become a vegan, but never, ever go back into that Piggly Wiggly or any Piggly Wiggly for that matter. And probably never, ever, ever buy any kind of seafood whatsoever again. But not this guy. He's one of those people that just can't say no. And so he says, and even as he says it, he knows that the hook has been placed, and the hook is placed. Discounting the absurdity of the situation, he just, a friend in need, right? He says, well, you're in a Piggly Wiggly supermarket, as we know, just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And if you were listening very carefully, just above the hum of the freezer, you could hear a sigh that the halibut emitted in frustration. Well, that, my friend, just doesn't really help me at all. I don't know what any of that means. So here where the guy, the ordinary guy, the professor adjunct, knows that he's sunk, right? This is it. It's like he's got to tell the halibut how he got here and what this place is. So obviously it goes back to the Gulf of Alaska, right? Maybe a few weeks ago. Just minding your own business, he says to the halibut, kind of projecting. You're just minding your own business there near the bottom of the Gulf of Alaska, maybe swimming around hunting, maybe you're minding the business of prey, but otherwise you're no trouble at all. Or maybe you're just laying on the flat white sand with both eyes staring up at the glittering light on the sea above. Occasionally an orca swims by or something like that, right? And then this beautiful life is interrupted by Steve, the fisherman, and halibut nods. He goes, I remember him. Rusty old boat. To the halibut, it's just a kind of a rusty, huge, kind of a lozenge-shaped thing. He doesn't really know what a lozenge is. I'm kind of filling in the blanks here, but it's just this shape and then things pop out and everybody dies, right? So it's a bad thing. Steve and his boat. Halibut knows all about this so far. So then he describes, well, then, all of your friends and family are just hauled up unceremoniously into Steve's little boat. Big boat, I suppose, to halibut. And you're taken into the port and into the processing facility, and they both wince. I mean, God, the guy thinks, couldn't I have come up with a better way of saying it? But I couldn't think of a word, right? He's under stress. And so, and the fish is going like, what's a port? And explain more about the boat to me, and what is a mid-sized city off the coast of Alaska? On the coast of Alaska, and the people are looking at this and they're going, that guy, he's super careful about what he wants to have for dinner. It's like maybe he's having, they don't know what's going on, but they leave him alone. He's armless. Just leave a sweater, right? So then it's like the port and the processing center, and then there's the freezers and the 53-foot vans and aluminum versus steel, and the, of course, the planes are like big birds made out of aluminum. It's like bird is just another shape that floats around on the water up ahead. Sometimes it's got like big feet that kind of go back and forth. And, it's just like the halibut, frankly, is struggling, but doing its best. And finally, we're getting into the, we're still in, you've been frozen, right? Been processed of frozen. You're like in a big plane flying toward Atlanta, Georgia. You're landing there at the airport, and then a big truck, we've gotten through the trucks and the wheels and stuff. Diesels. And then we're heading toward the Piggly Wiggly market, the back door. The roller door goes up, and the truck backs up there, and they unload it. And then, you're frozen with all your friends and family, and then you're like individually packed on these baby blue styrofoam trays, and then tightly wrapped with plastic. And then and this is like, well, it's not the biggest insult of all, but it's a pretty big insult is that they don't even put your name on there. It's just like a piece of paper that says the weight and price per pound and the kind of thing you are and where you came from. It's so insulting, so spreadsheet like. And then you're put out in this chest. And so and the fish is like, not processing, obviously, thinking, considering, like, what what's going on, right? What's going on? The context, kind of, doing its best. And then asked our guy, so what is this place for? And the fish is starting to get, that he's in a horror story, and, and our guy, the professor adjunct, thinks for quite a while, even for him. And he just, he's like, he could have walked away, right? Just could have, just like, not even said goodbye, just turned around and walked away from the halibut and left the halibut hanging, so to speak. But no. So he knows he's in for it, so he just dives in. So, this is a place where people like me, we come here and buy food, stuff to eat. And the fish is like, uh-huh. And it's like he's so distraught that the guy is that a little bit of cruelty comes out. It's like, we come and get, some food, and then we like chop it up into tiny little pieces, or we cook it, parboil it, and with each word, the halibut's two eyes kind of flinch. And then we eat it. And that's what we come here for, and I'm sorry. And the guy's genuinely sorry for ever having eaten anything in his whole life. The whole thing just seems so barbaric and cruel at this point. Yeah, I'm definitely sorry. So that's what you're here for, isn't it? The halibut asks. The guy nods. He doesn't say a word, just nods. His shame is complete. Well, says the halibut, I guess that's how the cookie crumbles. And the guy's dejected, beaten. The professor doesn't really know what to do at this point. He's just kind of beaten up by the whole affair. So the fish says, our halibut friend says, listen, I want to thank you, right? I want to thank you. There's nothing to be done here. This is, for me, a dreadful situation. But there's nothing to be done. It's, this is what happens. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to tell me what's going on. Tell me the context, right? Better than just being tossed into a microwave. And the guy goes, well, you're certainly welcome. I'm glad that I could have made this somewhat easier for you in some way. And the fish goes, but I've got just one more thing to ask. And I won't be upset if you don't do it. I know I've asked a lot of you already, and just one more thing. And the guy goes, okay, for sure, fine. He can see the ending coming. So he goes, yes. And the halibut goes, well, I don't know how to say this. I want you to do it. The thing. Take me home. And the guy his face just crumbles. His eyes close and his face just crumbles. He couldn't have imagined something like this. Yet he knows he's in for it. So he just silently nods with his eyes closed. And then he opens his eyes again, and he reaches into the chest and picks the fish ever so gently out of the case. With both hands, places it gently into the shopping cart. And he bends down close to the fish and he says, I'm going to go to the produce department and get some lemons and some asparagus and maybe some sliced almonds. And he begins to push the cart away. And the people in the other, the people who have been watching this whole drama without really knowing what's going on, breathe a sigh of relief. At last he's made his choice. And he's pushing the cart away toward the produce department. And the halibut says, our halibut friend asks, what's produce? And the guy almost loses it. He almost just breaks down completely. And the fish regrets asking him the question and says, no, wait. Nothing more. I mean, you've given me everything. You give me way more knowledge, that I could ever use. I've got boatloads, so to speak, of context. So let's just call it right now. I mean, thank you. Goodbye. I really appreciate it, but can we just leave it there? You don't need to tell me what produce or even asparagus is. And the guy is so relieved. Big sigh of relief. Sweat drips down. Yes, I agree, he says. Thank you. And he goes and gets the produce. Paper bag, checks out, drives home, goes up his flight of stairs to his second-story apartment, opens the door, one hand of groceries in the arm, crook of his arm, puts a bag of groceries on the counter, opens the sliding door. It's nice outside. Gets a wine out of the fridge. Best white wine. And he starts to make the preparations for dinner, and it's just exceedingly difficult. Exceedingly difficult. He goes out on the deck and puts a tablecloth on the round table. He never does that. Puts a candle there. Just kind of distracting himself. And then he can't avoid it anymore. He goes inside, puts some of that. He's got a little one-guy rice cooker on the counter. He puts some wild rice mix he likes in there. It only takes 15 minutes or so. Gets that going. Starts to, trims the asparagus and parboils it. Cuts the lemons. And then, the hour is arriving. The hour is arriving. And without a word, he has a plate with some flour on it. He gets some oil with just a little bit of ghee in there to get a little extra browning. So the guy's got his floured plate with the halibut, covered with a little bit of flour and salt and pepper. And he's just about to slide the fish into the pan. Of course he pauses. He can't help but pause. This moment, right? And right then, the halibut says, "Wait a minute. Hold on." The guy sighs. He just lowers his head. He's not at a place where it could get any worse than it is already, as far as he can see. So he stops. And Halibut goes, I would just like to know how you feel about this. And the guy was wrong. He could feel a lot worse than he did before. And the fish sees that and, really actually regrets asking it. He was kind of trying to lighten the situation up a little bit. That's all right. Halibut said, don't worry about it. Let me give you my take on the situation. And the guy said, yeah, sure, fine. It's the great circle of life, in a few words. If you must know, I have, in my time, eaten a few fish myself. And, to be really honest with you, I never really felt particularly bad about it. I never felt like I was really doing something terrible or anything like that. Of course, now I've got a different take on it, slightly. But still, it is what it is. This is what happens, right? Okay? Okay, yeah. And the fish says, well, bon appetit.